Tesla, Maesla, that's the main subject of today. Tesla stock, Elon Musk. Two videos for me to react to in this one here today, folks. First one up here, Elon Musk is good at delivering on promises, but not on time. So I'm going to hear what this gentleman has to say about the state of Tesla. Obviously, they reported earnings about a week or two ago now at this point in time, and kind of his thought process on Tesla at the moment. So I'm going to share my perspective on that one. Second video for me to react to is this one. The EV revolution has not yet started, even with Tesla. That's an interesting thought. So I want to hear what this gentleman has to say in regards to that, and we'll kind of get into that. So appreciate you guys joining me. As always, 26,200 plus subscribers on this channel now at this point in time. So appreciate y'all joining me. Thanks so much. And also, just so you guys know, $10 tier is going bye-bye as of tomorrow for the Patreon. If you're grandfathered in and you're already a member by tomorrow, then you'll be grandfathered in at the $10 tier. But, basically you won't be able to join after tomorrow. So if you want to take advantage of that and see the moves I'm making in the market, there'll be like pinned comment down there.
X Ventures is a member of GM and Lululemon's boards and a former executive at Lyft and Tesla. Are you wearing Lululemon?
Possibly. I am Lululemon head to toe today.
Head to toe.
Yeah, head to toe. I'm here to sell you Lululemons.
Just want to make sure.
No way.
You got the whole
white shirts.
Yes, white shirts.
Yes, they do.
What do you think?
That's a Lululemon jacket?
It's a Lululemon.
Yes, they do.
jacket.
No way. Yeah, they do a suit now.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
These are, I have these on.
Okay, well, you guys can, we'll
That's
talk.
all I have.
Yeah. We'll talk clothing in just a second.
Okay.
But what do you make of this whole idea of these shareholders? And we've had a bunch of them even come on the program now.
Yeah.
Who signed this letter saying, look, you're doing too much, Elon. It's just too much. What do you think of that?
I don't think he's all that distracted away from the business. Like on the earnings call, he was answering questions at a really deep level, like on how the C++ neural nets work.
Right.
Like he's involved, and he has always had a lot going on, but he is incredible at managing his schedule and staying involved on the absolutely key topics. And you see, like they are still delivering more cars than they've ever delivered. I think anybody in the car business would love a 36 comp on a quarter. And he's got a lot of margin to play with.
By the way, I don't disagree with you. What I can't figure out is, let's say he was paying more attention. What would the result be?
Yeah, what would you do about the general economic environment?
Right.
Exactly. And because they've got a lot of margin, they're using that as a weapon. And even though they cut prices 6 times this year, they still in the first quarter delivered more margin than anybody else in the industry.
Are you a believer, though, there is this other issue, which is, he's made a lot of promises to not just the shareholders, but frankly, the customers who bought the vehicles thinking that they're getting autonomous driving, full self-drive, all sorts of different component parts of the product that have not come to fruition. I say that somewhat politely because I do know some owners of these cars that are like genuinely upset because they think they were sold a bill of goods.
Yeah, I think he is good at delivering eventually on promises, but not on time on his promises. And that's got to be frustrating for customers. And I think now you see competition coming both on the EV side and on the autonomous vehicle side.
Right.
And I think they're feeling that competition for sure.
But one of the things you heard this year was he said, look.
Yeah, so I don't know what a customer might be frustrated by when it comes to autopilot, full self-driving, anything like that. That technology is amazing, what they have out there in the market right now. So I don't really think there's anything to be upset at when it comes to that. If we think about if you ordered, I'm trying to think Cybertruck's obviously going into production this year, so you can't be really, disappointed or mad about that. Obviously X, the 3, the S, the Y, they all went into production, so you can't be mad about that. So the only thing I could really think of that a customer could be mad at is if they ordered a Roadster, because the Roadster obviously has never gone into production. I honestly don't even think that's ever going into production. We'll see what happens, but I've never really thought that's even going into production because I'm like, why would you even bother buying a Roadster when you can just get an S Plaid, right? It's like the same speed, like 0 to 60 under 2 seconds. So that's the only thing I can think of. Outside of that, which is a very small amount of people, and I mean extremely small amount of people, put a $50,000 down payment or whatever on a Roadster. It's a very small percentage.
End of this year, I think we're going to have full autonomous driving, and that's where we're going to make it up on the margin, right?
Yes.
He thinks that he's saying, look, we'll take a lower margin today because I'm going to be able to really get margin later.
Right.
And I think there's some investors, at minimum, who are saying, Are you really going to be able to get margin later? Because A, there's all of these other car companies that are doing EVs that are going to try to take your margin. And B, is this full self-driving thing, robo-taxis, and all the ways you think you're capturing this margin in the future, is that a realistic future?
Yeah, I think that's what he's asking you to believe as an investor is, can you make this up in the future with software revenues and other revenues that are going to come in off the car? That's what you're being asked to believe as an investor.
And I'm asking you where you would land on that.
I think the market is kind of speaking on that. I think in the long term, this is a huge market. They're a market leader. They've got market-leading margins. And so as an investor, you're investing into a space that could be 10 times larger, literally in 5 years, than it is today. So even with...
But as an automobile company or as this other thing? Because right now it's still... To capture this type of valuation, even this valuation, you have to believe it's something else.
That's right, because they're valued at 10x their competition. And so you've got to believe that there's something else. And that competition is coming now with autonomous vehicles.
Okay, but so you used to work with this guy. You know.
Yeah.
So is there something else?
Oh, gosh.
There is.
If I hear somebody freaking compare Tesla to the competition valuation-wise again, I'm like... my head's gonna explode. Like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, it's unbelievable that I still gotta listen to this crap all these years later. It's unbelievable. Okay, first off, their competition, Ford, GM, all those other companies, they're all trying to completely switch their business models to the EV wave, right? Which is incredibly hard to do. And we don't even know if those companies are going to survive. So they're not going to command any sort of bigger valuation. They're commanding on the floor valuations because no one knows if those companies are even going to be around in 5 or 10 years from now, okay? That's the first thing I understand, okay? Is those companies might be out of business in 5 or 10 years. That's a possibility. Second thing, or they might have to sell to a competitor or something like that at a cheap price. Second thing to understand is when you look at something like Tesla, you got to look at its growth rates. And you got to think about it in terms of, like, where's this company going over the next 5, 10 years? The company is at a forward P right now that's in the 30s. For a company with that sort of growth, that's not high at all for a company like Tesla. With this sort of growth, a forward P of 30s is not high. If this was 150 forward P, that's a whole different scenario. And that's what Tesla's been at in many past years, right? But at a 30-something forward P, that is not a high valuation for this company. And actually, it's a really undervalued valuation. If you believe this company is going to continue to grow at a double-digit clip over the coming years, that's a very, very low number, especially if they grow double digits year after year, which I think is very possible for the next decade plus. And they grow their top line double digits, they grow their bottom line double digits on average over the years coming. Run the numbers on it. This is just math. Like it's not a high valuation whatsoever.
There is a lot of capability to deliver margins off of that platform, those cars. But GM's got a very similar strategy and a very similar capability, and others do too. Right. So this space becomes more crowded for sure.
I have one question about...
I don't know about that. I was just showing an article. I saw it on Twitter recently. It was from 2015, talking about, GM had the EV, or excuse me, had the Tesla killer. That's how it was quoted in the article. That was in 2015. Yeah, it's 2023, and, that Tesla killer never killed anything.
Traction piece, but the ecosystem that is Elon, which is to say, one of the things you keep hearing about is, so he has Twitter. He's now talking about doing generative AI. He's got SpaceX. There is this sense that, and he owns Twitter outright as a private company, Tesla, public company, SpaceX, private company, but lots of investors in there.
Yeah.
He does move these engineers around from place to place to place to place to help in specific moments. There was a period of time where we heard that a lot of Tesla engineers were showing up on the doorstep of Twitter to try to assess what's really happening. Folks at SpaceX, now in the whole generative AI situation, how that's, and he's got a lot of AI folks inside Tesla that he's going to want to use in other places. How should a shareholder feel about that? In the sort of normal context, there would be people who would say, no, that guy works for you over here. He does not work for you over here.
it drives, believe it or not, some massive breakthroughs. There are SpaceX metallurgy engineers, materials engineers who've really transformed the way the Model Y gets produced.
Right.
And so you get these big breakthroughs by moving that talent and context switching them. So yeah, I can understand one side of the story where investors are upset. The other side of the story that doesn't really get told is how much value they add back to Tesla as they come in and help.
Yeah, somebody I give some respect and love to. Do you know who it is? Okay, it's a woman. It's a woman. Who's this lady I'm thinking about? I got to give her some love here, okay? Cathie Wood. Cathie Wood. She was the first one that I really heard talk about that on a sort of level of like this brain tree of talent that Elon Musk attracts of world-class engineers that he uses for his different companies and whatnot, right? And so I always thought she was kind of the first one that really brought it out and made you think like, wow, yeah, he's attracted this incredible talent that he can use on obviously Tesla that is talent at other companies as well, okay? Alrighty, next one up here. EV revolution has not yet started, even with Tesla. This should be interesting.
Happy Friday. Good to have you here. I want to begin with a quick thought in terms of expectations for the Fed next week. It seems like, quarter points penciled in, but there's still an enormous amount of speculation revolving around the June meeting.
Yeah, good morning, Ben. Great to be on the program. This next week is super important because it's really going to let us know whether the Fed is taking all the information into account. I think the street is expecting a quarter of a point. That could change between now and then. Events could happen. There's stuff with the banks and other things that are happening. But generally speaking, we're looking for a quarter point this time and possibly more in June. We'll see, but I think the street is looking for a quarter point.
I was looking at some comments from the IEA this week. I'm not sure if you saw them, but a trend that we've seen in general, they were speaking to OPEC's cuts, right? And they said basically, look, be careful.
I was just smiling at the whole green screen New York Stock Exchange thing. It's like, imagine me with my videos that got in the background. Oh my gosh.
They were like, if you continue to cut and drive prices higher, they're already elevated, right? If they hold these levels, you're basically going to speed up the electrification penetration, ultimately EV vehicles and the market share that they take. This is a trend we've seen playing out, but they're warning here that it could ultimately speed up if we see customers kind of moving away from that higher price, prices at the pump, essentially.
Yeah, the EV revolution hasn't genuinely started as well as Tesla has done. We still have quite a bit of way to go with infrastructure, charging infrastructure,
Agreed.
and so on. Prices have started to come down. GM sells some EVs, their Bolt, the EUV,
Price cuts in
and some
Tesla.
Yes, price cuts in Tesla. You're seeing that the electric manufacturers are realizing, and it's led by.
Before we go further here, I do think this is an interesting thought process around, the EV revolution hasn't started. I would definitely say it has started at least. Okay, I don't know. We might be I think we're probably in the third inning of the game. The first inning really was Tesla launching, in my opinion, the Model S. That was really the first inning of the game, and then the Model X. And I feel like, the second inning was really, launching Model 3 and then launching Model Y and getting that up to production. I feel like now we're kind of in that third inning of the game, right? Where everybody, has at least probably some EV in the market. Most aren't having any success. Tesla's really the only one having major success outside of a few Chinese companies in China, right? In terms of the EV market. But yeah, obviously long way to go, especially on the infrastructure side. Tesla has their supercharger network built out in a massive way. But these other companies just don't. And they're not going to. They're going to have to rely on others building out that infrastructure. Tesla has their service fleet built out. They're going to have to continue to build it out as more and more cars hit the road in terms of their mobile service fleet, which I've had to use several times. Over the years, I've been a Tesla customer for probably 4 years now, and I've had them come to my house for just fixing whatever needed to be fixed, whether it's a battery died, right? In terms of the just the regular battery, not the huge battery, right? Or other problems, right? They just come fix whatever issue to in my garage, and that's beautiful. So yeah, in the infrastructure side, yeah, there's a lot of progress that needs to be made from the big dogs out there.
Tesla. They're realizing that we have to get the prices down to make the revolution really happen. But I'll tell you, it's something else to see this going on, because all of us have lived through our entire life with gasoline cars, and this is the real revolution starting to begin.
Something else to see it going on, and something else per our discussions in our office this morning, to try and say it 10 times fast. Electrification is a difficult word to get out. Let's talk about crude oil levels and some of the areas that you're watching, technicals that we should be keeping an eye on.
Sure. Yeah, since April 13th, crude oil has dropped significantly. And even on Thursday, I think yesterday, we had a 4% drop alone. Now, these are sharp losses and have brought crude back down to this level that you and I have talked about many times on your program, which is the $75 level. We think that $75 denotes strength or weakness if the market can close above them. On monthly closes, we think that the market's much more constructive. If the market can't close above it, we think that crude is going to make a test or an attempt at $60 to $58 later this year. So those technical levels remain the same. We've been talking about those since, I think, November of last year, and they still continue to be important. One thing I do want to note, we were surprised that crude at $64 just in March was able to recapture and close neutrally back up at 75. And I think we're closing right now. I think we're trading at $75 in crude even as we speak.
Well, that's what
Yeah, so crude in the 50s, okay, the only way we're getting crude to the 50s, in my opinion, is we're gonna have to have a pretty decent sized recession to see crude in the 50s. Okay, and do keep in mind, if you were to see a scenario like that, obviously they could pull back some sort of production, but obviously oil prices do matter in relation to Tesla, because let's be honest, I think there was definitely the higher crude prices are, right? I mean, if you go to the gas station and have to pay $5-6 a gallon, it definitely makes you think, shoot, maybe my next car is going to be an EV, right? And so I do think whatever happened last summer is going to be a massive long-term benefit to a company like Tesla, or just the EV revolution in general, because more and more folks are going to consider Teslas for their next vehicle purchase, whenever that is, whether that's 2 years out, 4 years out, 6 years out, 8 years out, whenever that is, right? And so I do think that's something important. Now, I'm not going to get too bullish in terms of assuming like crude's going to be low this summer. Remember, we're here at the end of April, and we still got to get through the summer in terms of oil prices. And generally speaking, oil prices go up throughout the summer. So don't everybody hold your horses. Don't get too excited yet. I don't want to hear any talk about crude $50 right now. Okay. If we can get through the summer, then we can talk about that. Okay. If this is September, we can start talking about that. But right now, I'm more worried about crude going to 100 than I'm worried about it going to 50, so that's kind of my thought process as far as that goes. So appreciate everybody joining me as always. Love to know your guys' opinion, anything Tesla related here. Appreciate everybody. Make sure you get in the Patreon if you want to get in the Patreon. The $10 tier is going bye-bye tomorrow. So yeah, it's your last chance to get in there. If you're looking to get in there, that'll be pinned comment down there. Much love and have a great day.